All right, it's 4:30. Today is Tuesday, October 8th, and it's the Parks and Public Works Committee meeting here. We're going to call the meeting to order and do roll call. This evening, Ethan Benson is out of town, so he will not be present. Can we move to excuse him from this meeting?
Yeah, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
All righty, then we're going to go forward with approval of the agenda. Any changes or objections to the agenda?
No changes or objections for me.
All right, then we'll approve that. We're going to open now for public comment. There will be no online public comments taken this evening, but if there's been anything written submitted prior to 3 p.m. today to the City Council, we can certainly consider that, or anybody in chambers tonight, which I do not see anyone besides staff members here. So we will close public comment at this time. Let's see what we got here. Then we have approval of the minutes dated September 17th, 2024. Any objections to the
No
or
objections.
changes? Okay, minutes will be considered approved. Next on the agenda is our agenda bills. Up first is AB 24-103, Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails, the PROST plan update for 2025. And I believe presenting tonight will be Manager Dylan Gamble.
Good evening. Let me make sure Andy's not here, but I threatened to test the mic and I am now doing it. So, good evening. My name is Dylan Gamble. I'm the CIP manager, and I'm very excited to actually introduce to the Public Works Committee, but this has been going on for quite a while, but we'll get into that in a sec. So this is the PROST plan, the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails plan, which is essentially a similar chapter to the comp plan, but for the parks and open spaces. So I know that council has been digesting all the details related to the comp plan, which has got lots of chapters, lots of reading to be done there. And this is in much the same way, that intent, except for it has a bit of a different spin. Obviously, it's for parks and open space, but it also includes a lot of stuff related to parks levels of service, as well as kind of a separate stakeholders feedback mechanism that we went through. And then the last part of it is that it has a pretty detailed CIP component that goes into it. And we being me and the team from Kimley Horn, who's the consultant, will be diving into this. So I'll kind of go into some of the breakdowns here, but first I'm going to introduce the team at Kimley Horn. I believe I see Nick, Marissa. Are you both in here? I see you both. Yep.
Yeah, it's Marissa, myself, and then Randall Koff as well.
Okay, Randall's on too. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to let Kimley Horn do a lot of the presentation. They did a lot of work on this, and this is the starting point for kind of introducing what the plan is. What they're going to be doing is kind of walking through in slideshow form how to read the document. So they're going to break down each piece, kind of the process that we went through to create the components you'll see, as well as kind of dig into some of the fun and interesting, exciting details that we got from our stakeholders, from the public, through our website, through public engagement, through parks, the PROST plan meetings that we held, and kind of worked through all that materials and then created the documents you have. The last little bit here is to kind of understand where we came from. So this is not the city's first take at a open space plan. So we have a 2012 open space plan that was done kind of, let's say, from the ground up, so to speak. And then in 2018, it was modified to kind of capture changes over time. So that 2018 was the one we were working with, and this is the proposed replacement of that. This, kind of like the 2012 one, is a workup more or less from the ground up, where we took a lot of new approaches to stakeholder feedback information and did a pretty deep dive on the future goals, wants, needs, dreams of the parks and open spaces, trails for the city. So with all of that said, I think I'm going to kick it over to Nick and the team at Kimley Horn. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Dylan. Thank you.
Okay, Sounds great. I'll be here. Just let me know when you want to go slide by slide. I'll be your guiding clicker.
Appreciate it. We can stick on this one for just a bit. We appreciate you all. Want to say first off, somehow the stars aligned in a bad way that we weren't able to be there in person with you with some other work travel set up, but looking forward to being in person the next time we see you all. But as Dylan mentioned, we're going to walk through the plan. We really wanted to focus this in on a how to read the document. I think Dylan hit the nail on the head in terms of what purpose for this meeting is. We'll go into some details, but recognizing the plan is quite long and some of the background documents that are either attached to the plan or supporting documents are pretty long as well and detailed. Just know we're here to answer any questions that you have as we go through, but this is going to be sort of an overview and a higher level glance given the amount of time that we have. Appreciate the opportunity to come bring this plan before you, and it was a great plan to work on, and we're happy that we're at the spot we're at. In a little bit, I'm going to hand off to Marissa Pellegrini and Randall Kopp as well to cover some portions of the presentation. So you'll hear them come on, but I wanted to talk a little bit up front just about the plan in general, and then Snoqualmie Parks and sort of the prioritization of what we had in terms of goals. So Dylan, you can go to the next slide. So I think you all may be aware, but you have a lot of parks facilities, a lot of parks, open space, trails, all of these recreational opportunities. And we heard that a lot during the outreach. Marissa's going to cover a little bit of that in the next couple slides, but we heard overwhelmingly that I think the city has great amenities, they have great park facilities, and they have great programs as well. And so, while there's always room for improvement, we heard a lot of really positive feedback, and just upfront wanted to share that to know that the city's doing a great job and residents feel at least represented that in the community's response that they gave us. There's over 600 acres of park spaces, 5 community parks, 9 neighborhood parks, and then 25 what we call pocket parks. A lot of the parks up on the ridge that went in with individual neighborhoods. 35 plus miles of trails. This plan looks at connections of those trails and where they might be missing and things like that. And then just some large natural open space areas as well. And then Dylan, do you want to go to the next slide? Wanted to talk a little bit about the overall project goals. So obviously with the pros plan, we have a good number of things we're trying to tackle. We're trying to figure out what community priorities are for the next 6 years in terms of where investment should be. It also looks beyond those 6 years to look at what we call visionary projects. We'll go into that a little bit later as well to try and figure out how we plan for either maintenance or improvement or addition to parks facilities as we go forward. So we want to create a comprehensive and compelling vision and direction for parks and recreation. This is Dylan mentioned the comp plan. This is the overall guiding document for parks and recreation going forward. This is sort of the reference when decisions need to get made or when we're looking at where to prioritize potential funding or other types of investment. The plan proposes various approaches for accommodating growth while also trying to understand the fiscal impact of some of those growth opportunities and where money might be best spent and provides a number of different strategies. We also look at ways to identify gaps and look at future improvements in programming and try and figure out how we prioritize some over the other. It becomes a little tough. The community has different goals depending on who you ask and where people live, but we try to identify potentially underserved areas and also new and kind of innovative ways to address parks problems or issues we may run into or learned about as we did our outreach. We also want to gain an understanding of the current and desired levels of service. Some parks may not need to be full park facilities anymore. The city has, as I mentioned in the previous slide, a lot of parks, a lot of different types of parks. Some are in pretty close proximity. Some serve the same groups in terms of different neighborhoods. And then some have, potentially a lot of opportunity for future investment and improvement. So this plan outlines all of those. It goes through where the city could potentially save some funds by either turning existing park facilities into more natural areas that require less maintenance, or just phasing out some of the improvements and then reinvesting in some other areas. We also want to understand partnership opportunities and funding options. The very last slide of this presentation, we'll go through some of those as well. And then lastly, we looked at what we call these different lifetime projects that are just things like everyday maintenance and operations that we'll need to go through and are needed to keep existing park facilities going as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marissa. She's going to talk a little bit about the community outreach that we went through for this project.
Alrighty, thanks, Nick. So we did have a robust community engagement process. We combined online outreach as well as in-person outreach. And so we had a project dedicated website with social pinpoint tools, meaning they're interactive tools that someone can visit the website and be able to participate on the spot at their leisure on their schedule. So that was great. And we had great turnout on the interactive maps and the survey responses on the website, as well as kind of a budget prioritization tool. So that was fantastic. We also had in-person community workshops. So we had a couple of those. We had interviews with mayor and city council members. So trying to understand leadership's point of view, as well as city staff. And then we had, obviously, we've met with you all in the past. So the Parks and Public Works Committee, and then we had staff meetings as well to kind of understand different points of view from different folks within the department. So that was great. Dylan, you can go to the next slide. Thanks. So the results of that outreach were wonderful. We had over 3,000 touch points with the community. Like I said, we did stakeholder interviews. We had the workshops. We had almost 1,000 website visits, over 100 survey responses, over 250 interactive map comments, which I believe you might still have access to be able to see those all today. And then about 50 people shared their big idea. So if there were no constraints, what would you want to see in the Parks and Rec system? That was a really great exercise to be able to see people's thoughts about what they would like to see in parks. And then shared priorities using the budget tool that I talked about earlier. And so with all of that outreach, that all kind of culminated into some themes that we carried on throughout the document, and we formulated our key recommendations around those. So Dylan, you go to the next slide. Those key themes were creating an equitable and inclusive park system, enhancing community connectivity, celebrating our natural resources, and investing in our aging parks. And so again, those were kind of the tenets that we used to formulate detailed recommendations around. I'll pass it to Randall, who will get started on the inventory and facility assessment portion.
Yeah, so along with all the community outreach that we did, we also, a very key piece of the plan was to inventory and assess existing, what you have in your park system currently. And how we did that was on a scale of 1 to 5, rating each amenity and each facility within all of your parks. And you can think about it like almost in a school grading system, A through F. Number 1 being critical, an F. There's a facility or an amenity that has a safety hazard or is damaged and needs to be repaired immediately. That would be the low end of the scale. A 5 would be like an A. That's something that has recently been installed, is like new, or has been so well maintained over the past few years that it serves as a new facility or amenity. Next slide, Dylan. Thank you. So this is just an example park. We did this essentially for every single park, inventoried everything that was in each of the parks, quantified it, and then graded it based on that scale that we just talked about. And you can see we made comments about each of those amenities within that park, and also photo documented each of them. Next slide. And then one of the key pieces of the second part of the inventory was really developing a capital improvement plan. And that capital improvement plan is really built into 2 pieces. The first of which is the life cycle replacement. That is your existing projects, projects that amenities that need to be replaced, repaired, those types of things. And it's important to note that that's typically one-time funding, and it does not usually increase your O&M costs because they are amenities that are already within those parks. So they're already being maintained to a certain level. And you can see kind of here the breakdown of the life cycle projects, the reinvestment in your park system through your next 3 CIP cycles, both by year and then also classification, which is the type of park. The second piece of that capital improvement plan is the next slide. which are visionary projects. So those are the types of projects that are not currently in your park system. They could be new parks, they could be additions to existing parks. And those typically do increase O&M costs because they are new amenities and facilities. And again, here you can see the breakdown, the percentage of the funding that is spent over your next 3 CIP cycles or expected to be spent. And then the next slide is the funding strategies. So how do you pay for those improvements? And within the plan, there are multiple strategies, and you can see a few of those here, everything from bond financing, corporate sponsorships, grants, user fees, partnerships, and then also volunteerism. And I think with that, that's our last slide. We turn it over to Dylan, and if there's any questions that anyone might have about the plan or the presentation.
Yeah, and I guess Dylan, before you jump in, I'll just add, hopefully when you get a chance to look at the document, if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, you'll see there's a lot of information packed in there. If you have questions about it, our team's obviously here. Dylan's here to help walk through those as well. And there's a good number of appendices that are going to be potentially added as well, trying to add a little bit more detail on the CIP potentially. So you may see that come your way. But Dylan, I just wanted to hand over to you.
Yeah, and so actually kind of to jump into that last bit, in the document you received, there was 2 appendices already. And the intent there is, so we have the main post plan, and that kind of goes in all the detail as the parks, it has the assessment, level of service, goes in all that. And then there is an appendices that is the, I suppose you call it the goals, objectives, policies. That's kind of been the traditional comprehensive plan approach where you have a goal. The goal is to create sustainable parks, right? And then you have a bunch of objectives that you would use to get there. And this document has those as well. It has them both in like description of this is the type of facilities we want to see. And then it also has in the appendices that list those out. And the way that was developed is a combination of taking the previous plans, the 2018 version, incorporating everything that was still valid there, because some things were completed, for example, and then taking in the new input that we received from this approach, the stakeholder feedback, the reviews from council, the mayor, and the staff members, and kind of adding a couple of additional ones. And really importantly to that, some of these types of plans, like the post plan, the appendices, the comprehensive plan, are very critical to getting funding for the projects that relate to them. So if we wanted to get RCO funding, Recreation Conservation Office, this plan has to be in place, and we have to be calling it out in an appropriate way. So if RCO, for example, said that you don't have a plan, it's invalid, or your other one's too old, which we'd get in trouble for other things too. For example, I know you know that the comprehensive plan's got a deadline. Parks and Open Space Plan kind of times with it. And so that's a lot of those efforts too. So you'll see that in there where it says cooperation with state governments on regional park operations. That's an example of like us trying to make sure that we're achieving an RCO requirement for funding. So there's elements of that going on in here as well. And so there's a lot to unravel in that sense. But I will pause. I know we just kind of went on to it, and I know that you all have had time to look at the document. If you had any questions or comments or just curiosities about the way it's laid out, you have all of our attention.
Not at this stage.
I did notice that it was very in-depth information, especially into the demographics by age and the generations, what activities they prefer. And I was actually quite surprised by some of those results, as far as which certainly would probably come to our attention more with how the city demographics change. I know a lot of young families right now, but going forward, things may change in the future or not, but and how we can gear for those. And so, yeah, I think that this is really valuable information, and I appreciate all the time that the staff and departments put in on this. This is amazing. Don't cut down any more trees. Yes. Yes, city administrator.
I also want to thank the Parks and Events Commission. They helped too on this project. I don't know if they got mentioned or not, but they did play a key component in this also.
I saw them in the acknowledgements. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I believe this slide here is supposed to say Parks and Events Committee, not Parks and Public Works Committee. Sorry about that. But yes, they were absolutely instrumental. They reviewed it. They definitely gave us a good grammar check, and we had a lot of edits to do and to try to, do right by that board. And so, yeah, they've been a part of this. They've known and seen as we've gone through the CIP. They reviewed that back months ago, and they've also reviewed the, I guess you call it the inventory assessment. So what, the condition report, so to speak, of all of our parks and open space and trails. And so, yeah, they've been instrumental in kind of guiding this ship, so to speak.
Excellent. Where's your next stop with this? Is this going to be at council?
Yes, yep. It's first stop is here. Then the next one is at council, and then we're hoping to answer any questions that are needed then, and deeper dive if necessary. I mean, whatever council wants is what we'll do. But we're also excited to have it adopted and start activating all the things that are kind of listed in there. So,
Great. Thank you.
yeah, no problem.
Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? All right.
Right.
You fibbed to me.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I said I was going to take hours, but I got you. Thank you, Kimberly Horn, again for making it tonight's meeting and for producing such good work.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. Thank you, everyone. We had a lot of help from a lot of people all throughout the city who gave their input, and it was really well appreciated, and I think it shows in the plan. So appreciate everyone.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the AB 24-102, revising the corporate boundary of the city of Snoqualmie to include a portion of 384th Avenue Southeast right-of-way. And I believe that Engineer Fry was going to present on this, or do I need to do the reading first? No, just, okay. All right, so this is, oops. Introduction. This agenda bill seeks approval to revise the corporate boundary of the city of Snoqualmie to include 384th Avenue Southeast right-of-way from Southeast River Street to the southern edge of the Kimball Creek Drive intersection. And the proposed action, motion to adopt ordinance XXX, revising the corporate boundary of the city of Snoqualmie to include a portion of 384th Avenue Southeast right-of-way. So, discussion?
Evening.
Hi there.
I don't have a presentation like Dylan, so you'll just have to bear with me for this. But yes, like you read, this agenda bill is essentially seeking to annex a portion of 384th. So that's from River Street, so the northerly edge of 384th, right over here. This is River Street for, obviously, if you guys likely know, down through the Kimball Creek Ave intersection. So that'll just be just below that Kimball Creek Ave neighborhood, that intersection. So essentially to the Encompass building, we'll call it. And so just a bit of background, that's all unincorporated King County. That entire right of way is unincorporated King County. And so the city limits are on the east side of the right of way there. So all those homes on the right side of the road, if you're driving north, city of Snoqualmie, all the homes on the left side, unincorporated King County. While you're on the road, that's unincorporated King County. This agenda bill is essentially just proposing to take over 384th, not the homes west of 384th or any of that. That's not the purview here. It's just 384th, that portion, essentially where the sewer is going, extending north to River Street, which is a little further than the sewer city limits or the sewer project extends. And so now why would we want to do that is the obvious question, because now that means that we need to take care of that road, right? So essentially it's just an added cost is the obvious way to look at it. But really it's going to be a cost savings because with our 3 utilities in there, there's water that's run underneath there, sewer runs underneath there, and soon to be storm with that sidewalk in there that runs underneath there. Dealing with King County adds a whole bunch of costs to projects. Just on this 384th project, we have spent a lot of money just in dealing with King County permitting. Unfortunately, I don't have a breakdown of that. Further, anytime we need to work on the utilities, we need to deal with King County standards. And a lot of those times, those standards are in either direct conflict with our goals and designs, or they just don't align with them perfectly. And they add costs, again, to our projects. And so when you have all 3 utilities on there, we are always actively working on there on streets that have all 3 utilities. And being able to incorporate that portion of the road will just mean that we are the full owners of that road, and we no longer have to worry about permitting with King County, worrying about inspections with King County, delays from King County, or added costs because their design standards don't align with ours. And so, yes, it means that it's another street that we will have to pave at some point in the future. But at the end of the sewer project, we're going to have fresh, brand new road, ground and overlay, and that will have a lifespan of about 25 years. And that cost is $167,000 in today's money, and the amount of money that we save by not having to go through King County and permitting is significantly greater than that over the course of 25 years. And so the reason that we are halting that annexation, or proposing to halt that annexation just at the Kimball Creek intersection, is so that we don't take over another bridge with Kimball Creek. If you may or may not recognize that there's a bridge there, but there is a bridge, and we are trying to avoid taking over another bridge because that would not be a cost savings if we were to incorporate that, because that would be another bridge maintenance item, and those are incredibly expensive. And I don't think that we would save money despite saving permit fees costs.
And it's
by
an
having a
older
bridge.
bridge. Yeah.
And so we don't want to take that over. And so that's what this agenda bill is seeking.
I do have a question on, can you briefly tell me what the process is for getting this turned over from unincorporated King County to the city?
Yep. So it's actually a fairly smooth process because because it's a road corporate boundary. So if we wanted to like annex a large swath of land, that's a much more complicated process that I have frankly no idea how to do. But with this process, because it's just incorporating a road that we're on one side of the boundary on, and it would be taking it over, we approve this ordinance through us, and then we give it to King County. We have a contact at King County. They're already fine with it. They're bought off on it, and they take it through their council, which would likely happen in, call it December or so. And then that would be it. That would be the end of it. We provide them with the legal description. That's attachment 2. And that's really all that they need, is the fact that we, the city of Snoqualmie, are bought off on it, have an ordinance for it, and then the legal description.
Right, it sounds like a good idea, just based on the fact that we're doing so much work out there at this time, and especially with now adding in the 3rd utility and such. Comments, questions, concerns from you?
So I need more, okay? $167,000 to grind and overlay, and we shouldn't touch it for 25 years, but I want to take it over because when I do touch it, it's a nuisance to deal with King County. How often are we expecting to touch it? I can't use the grind and overlay as we don't expect to do it, and it's a cost savings at the same time. So I need to understand how often, under normal circumstances, would we touch that and what would that cost? I got a lot of anecdotal data here. I don't have anything that really states an expected cost savings as a result of this. And I'm really confused that every other government entity around here is more than willing to get rid of things, yet we seem to be the one that wants to pick something up. So we're going against the flow. It gives me caution. I really need to understand what the dollar business case is for doing this. And a little more detail and some numbers behind that.
Sure.
Okay. Anecdotal data only takes me so far. Agreed. We're gonna make some estimates, so that eventually it's all imaginary. But I like imaginary numbers versus imaginary stories. So help me out with that. And that'll get me over the hump of why we want to pick something up when everybody else wants to get rid of. And we're having a hard time discussion about Parkway with the state, so. And county was more than happy to throw us the stuff around the old mill site. I'm confused why we're now on the other end of trying to pick something up. So help me out with that. We email or whatever discussion or in council. I'm
No
not
problem.
proposing to.
It's an ordinance, so it's got to be 2 readings. So
Okay.
I'll come back to the next committee with those numbers. I could send you an email as well. And just as a general statement, this does happen actually pretty regularly. The contact with King County says it happens regularly, and it's the reasons that I stated. It's because our utilities are in it.
Mhm.
We would never want to take over a road unless we had a bunch of utilities underneath it.
Would be beneficial, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this something we can send forward to on consent agenda for,
Ordinance can't, it has to
No.
be read and stuff.
okay. Just to give you a chance to get the numbers.
That should be, they're all going to be estimates, but
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Engineer Fry. All right. Hey. Um, Next up
Sewer connection.
is, yes, Agenda Bill AB 24-100 Residential Sewer Connection. Introduction, a property owner outside city limits has requested connection to city sewer system from parcel 312-408-9052 located at 8805 384th Avenue Southeast in unincorporated King County. Let's see. Proposed action, move to approve sewer participation agreement for the property located at 8805 384th Avenue Southeast. Zip code 98065, King County parcel number 312-408-9052. And,
I'll take that.
okay,
Yeah. So the reason why we bring this here is because we need approval to sign the agreement. But this is a new customer. They're paying general facility charges to the tune of $19,000. And we want more customers. It's good for us. So
Yeah.
we just need your approval to sign the agreement. There's nothing unusual about this. This is what we've been doing. Yeah.
I think we've done
Several of
a
these.
few of these, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any questions? Is this,
Uh,
oh, go ahead.
So, the surcharging issue.
The surcharging issue is being fixed with the 384th project that Patrick is doing now.
Are there any latecomer charges?
Yes, there was a latecomer charge that was assigned to this, and I believe it was the tribe that
Mm.
it's in the agreement.
Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah, she didn't seem to qualify for any of the exemptions. that were listed under here?
The exemptions?
They didn't qualify for any of these.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No, there's a GFC, there is the latecomer fee, which is $4,000. And I believe there was one other fee, which I can't remember what it is right now. Oh, the latecomer agreement pro rata share was $3,529. Sorry.
I'm good at consent.
So we can forward this onto the consent agenda for the next, I don't know, wherever it could fit in on the upcoming meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Right, let's see. And then we have a discussion topic of wireless communications siting hierarchy amendments. And it looks like Director Artechi will be presenting that.
Yes, hello. I want to commend you on how expedient you are with getting through your agenda bills. Can I join your committee too? So I hope to not take up too much time, but I am here today to facilitate a brief discussion and seek guidance about wireless facilities in parks. Over the past 2 years, the city's been approached by wireless companies with requests for expanded facilities on the Ridge, which lacks coverage. However, there's relatively little space available with the exception of parks in that area. And the City Development Code cites facilities based on a siting hierarchy, which does include the siting of facilities in community parks. So I'm here today to kind of ask a two-part question. Would the committee like to see the siting of facilities in parks? And if so, would the committee like to see the siting of facilities expanded to include other parks, like neighborhood parks? I see some smiles, so I feel like this is kind of a lighthearted discussion, and City Administrator Chambliss is also very knowledgeable about this topic.
Yes, City Administrator.
So before we embark on adjusting the code and everything, we want to know if there's appetite to do that. Staff has identified Carmichael Park as a possible candidate for a site for a tower up in the tennis court. It would not be a visual blight hazard to the residents. It's kind of tucked out of the way, not even really visible from much of the park. We think that we need to have a couple options in the tool belt ready to go when we get approached again. And so we're just putting it out there as a possibility. If the council has appetite to explore it, we'll go ahead and do the work, bring it back and propose those changes to the municipal code. If there's no point in doing it, then we don't want to go ahead and waste the effort in doing that. And we're good to go with our one place we have left where we could possibly do an antenna, which is Fisher Park. The code allows them in Centennial Park, Jeannie Hansen Park, and Community Park, but I think we all know those are very heavily packed parks and there's no real room to put any towers. I think the last person who was here wanted to put it in the middle of the upper soccer field at Community Park. We're like, nope. We're just trying to come up with other options.
Is this something that any community members have brought up as interest or request for this type of service or?
Well, I can answer that in part. This is a gap in coverage. So even the fire station has terrible cell
Oh, yeah.
service. And so the carriers look at their data and they look at their RF engineering reports, and they see that Snoqualmie is a hot area to close a gap in coverage. And so they continue to approach us with the idea of a wireless facility somewhere on the Ridge. And yeah, and in turn, customers do call and say, hey, I'm losing coverage here, or my call dropped. And so they kind of gather that information up too.
Okay,
You live on the ridge?
yeah, but the reason I chuckled, am I interested in tower and parks? No. Am I interested in better cell service for the citizens of Snoqualmie? Yes. So I think the question's a little ill-formed. And under what conditions would that be acceptable? And that kind of drives me to what's the definition of a tower? Because if we're talking of putting a aluminum tower into Fisher or into Carmichael and have it there stuck at, no, but there are options.
I believe the code requires trees.
Yeah,
It's camouflaged, but it could be a tree. It could be a flagpole. It could be an art piece. It does favor co-locations, but it also favors existing antenna support structures is the technical terminology. So anything that sticks out of the ground.
yeah, similar to what we did with Key Bank and putting that facade up on top. That's a great way to do it because nobody except my wife has asked questions about what that is. So that's a great example of how to do it in harmony with its surroundings that you're putting it into. And in that case, yes, if we're putting something in place to increase service, which doesn't distract from the existing amenity greatly, it's going to distract somewhat, and doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, yeah, I'm all for it. But we got to talk about what that is. I mean,
It essentially what the carriers are looking for, they're looking for 120-foot structure that could house multiple carriers on one antenna support structure. Whether it be stealth or, it would, the code would require it to be stealth. So the one that you saw at the bank was, I believe it was actually another wireless facility, but not specific to, I can't remember the name of that facility, but it was a one carrier facility.
So this is
I
something,
think it was Dish, actually, now that I think about it, it was Dish. So,
something where multiple carriers would utilize the same tower.
yeah, wireless cell phones, would use the same facility.
And did they just want to do the ridge, or was there any talk about downtown?
It's just the ridge that they want. Because of gap in coverage and RF engineering reports, this is where their signals go up and out, and it's easy to get down, but you can't get up. So
there's a gap in coverage downtown here.
I was gonna say, there are some, yes, sir.
I just want to be clear, there is no project. We're
Right.
just trying to think ahead to
Right.
get the play field set up for the game if the players show up to play. So currently the code's not being very successful in attracting this. So we're looking to see if there's interest, and it sounds like there is. So we have some work to do. We'll go modify some targeted modifications to the code, and I don't think we're gonna be looking at 120-foot towers in the parks. Maybe 60 feet. That's about the height that occurs. But yes. I think we got the gist and direction that we needed.
Would any of this, because I know there's been some conversations about events coming up in 2026, such as the FIFA tournament, and requests from even around here for getting more businesses covered for international travelers being able to be out in this area and be able to pick up those kinds of things. Is this something that would help with that type of coverage as well?
It would be an ancillary benefit. Better cell coverage is going to help everybody in the area. So, but we're not targeting any specific need or event other than the need for better cell coverage.
Better code.
And yeah.
On the code. I think it's more information.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, any other topics or items for discussion?
No,
Not really.
Consider adjournment?
It's efficient.
breaking it back to 5 o'clock, but whatever. All right. Yeah, if
Well,
Nothing
we
more
were
discussion.
originally going to go a little longer today, but we bumped a couple of our agenda bills back. There's going to be two others with regard to the reclaimed water facility up on the ridge, but they weren't ready to go, so we had to bump them.
Next time?
Next time.
Okay.
That's right.
All
I
right.
also didn't know how deep a dive we were gonna do on the pros plan.
Yeah, I was expecting more. Hours and hours more.
And we can keep going.
All right, well, if there's nothing more, then we will adjourn this meeting at 5:16. Thank you.